Deputy Ted Dahlin, the inspiration for K9s4Cops, talks about how he found out that he had lost his canine partner, Blek.
No, once he got out of my sight, he was quiet. I mean, he didn't make a bunch of noise. I mean, sometimes maybe on a building search they may alert by barking, and that's a whole nother thing. I don't always like that, but yeah, no, he would have just done what he was doing. But I stopped and listened, trying to hear anything, and couldn't. So I got on the radio, told the perimeter units, hey guys, you see him, open your back door and throw him in. Everybody knew he was friendly. I mean, to them, he was not a out of control dog by any means. And so we stopped looking for crooks and started looking for my dog. And I just started a grid pattern, and it was dark by now. And a little while later, my sergeant came up to me, and he had his leash because he had the 6 foot just dangling, and he gave me a hug.
Welcome to Game of Crimes. All right, you guys, welcome back. We were just talking. I got a special surprise from Murphy. Goes, something from West Virginia? I said, no, it's not possum.
If it is from West Virginia, it'll be special.
It'll be special. Hey, guys, welcome back. This is episode 46, Game of Crimes.
Wow,
the
hard
original.
to believe, isn't it? Episode 46.
46, man. A couple more episodes, Murph, and that and your IQ will almost be the same.
Woohoo! 157. I'm just amazed that episode 46 is coming up. And our listeners know we haven't missed a single week yet.
No, ever June 28th, man, we started cranking them out. So every week, like clockwork, baby. Say, everybody, I am Morgan Wright. Obviously, you guys figured that one out, and I'm here literally with my partner in crime,
Steve Murphy. Just call me Murph.
Guys, we're having some fun. So we're going to get into this here in just a minute, but just real quickly first, just some housekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
Apple reviews, Spotify, they got 5 stars. Cinco, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 stars, man. Just go over and hit those stars for us. It really helps us out. We really, truly appreciate it. Also, head on over to our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com, for everything. Our new book list that we have there, merch, mailing list, things like that. In fact, we've got some couple guests coming up. One of them has got 4 books that we're going to add to the list. So Jerry Clark, the pizza bomber case. So we'll be talking about him probably in a couple episodes here. Follow us on social media at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. But where you got to be, and I'm telling you where you got to be. We just got through recording our case of the month about the Oklahoma City bombing, about how Timothy McVeigh was actually caught. And Murph now has to give props to troopers.
To one trooper. From Oklahoma, not Kansas.
All troopers.
You give all troopers a bad name, Morgan.
Well, maybe. As yet, undisclosed things that I refuse to acknowledge in public on this podcast. So, but yeah, guys, no, we just finished talking about how Timothy McVeigh was actually caught, because when we recorded this episode, it was just a couple days after the 27th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, April 19th. 1995 at 9:02 a.m. 168 people lost their lives, 19 kids. So, I mean, but we dive into, and when you realize how tight of a timeline it was, how Timothy McVeigh could have been out had it not been for a series of events and what Charlie Hanger, the trooper who stopped him, called divine intervention. But you're only going to find that one place. And where are they going to find that at, Murph? On
the Patreon channel for Game of Crimes. Come and join us. I guarantee you're going to hear some funny stuff on there. You're going to hear some stuff you won't hear anywhere else, too.
Patreon.com/Game of Crimes. So head on over there. We got some good stuff coming out on there. Also, if you just want to throw out something every now and then, you're tired of some cash that you have, just head on over to PayPal.com. Use our email, gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com.
Very much appreciated.
Or PayPal.me. Yeah, it always is. PayPal.me/Game of Crimes, whatever. It makes it easier for you to support the show. But guess what? This is a show about crime. We talk about bad people doing bad things and bad people doing bad things to good people. We do take the story seriously, but
we never take ourselves serious, which makes this a whole lot of fun.
And speaking of not taking ourselves seriously, episode 45, Eric Kolbinski, he literally was a riot at DEA, so caused a couple of them.
What a great story, and the fact that he's telling the story of Luis Navia. He's the former cocaine trafficker that we had on 25 years in the business. Got captured while trying to transport. Was it 25 tons of cocaine out of Venezuela?
26 tons out of it. And he's lucky he didn't get nailed for that because he would have been spending life in prison.
Yep. And Eric's the one that arrested him in Venezuela. And believe it or not, today they are very close friends. Very close friends.
They go out to lunch.
Yep. I'm going to join him one of these days.
I think Eric has to buy. I think he makes Eric buy.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to join him one of these days.
Well, before you join him, though, Murph, we got to get one other thing out of the way because when you go to lunch, it's lunchtime. But guess what time it is right now, though?
It's time for
small town police blotter. Faster. Okay. Hey, told you I got a surprise. But before we get to your surprise,
okay,
Steve, did you know a report was received at 11:05 a.m. Tuesday that 6 Oreo cookies were stolen at a residence in the 900 block of Burley Street? The complainant requested extra patrol in the area.
Now, that's a felony in my house. You take 6 Oreo cookies, somebody going to freaking jail, I'll tell you right now.
6.
Who called the cops?
For 6 Oreo cookies. Well, why not take all of the Oreo cookies? All you got to do is look who's got the crumbles around their mouth. Look for who's got the milk where they've been dunking. Oreos are only good if you dunk them into milk, right?
That's it. Absolutely. That's the way they're made. And if you eat them any other way, that's wrong.
It's wrong. It's un-American.
So this is either some wife wanting to get rid of her husband or vice versa, or a little kid's ticked off because his brother or sister got him.
That's right. Somebody's calling the police on the Oreos. But, Steve, there's even a more heinous crime that was reported on Sunday, July 19th.
Okay.
8:44 a.m. Report of a male riding through neighborhood yelling racial slurs. 3 minutes later, 8:47 a.m. Officer stops the man who says he's just trying to find his dog, named Snickers. This might be the suspect in our Oreo case. He couldn't find Snickers, so he took Oreos instead.
I'm not even going to say anything on that because I get accused of being racist all the time.
Yeah, with 2 Colombian daughters. Yeah,
I try not to be. Yeah.
All right, Steve, I am not going to tell you where this is from, but I'm just going to read you. And this comes to us from one of our listeners. And in fact, let me see. I was trying to find out who sent it. Oh, I got to get the name here too. I'll get the name.
All right.
But Steve, May 23rd, larceny was reported. Captain K.W. Reed received a report from a Joywood resident advising that she let a female into her home to use the restroom and believed that the woman stole $1.50 in cash, her BB&T credit card, her West Virginia food stamp benefits card, and her Direct Express Social Security benefits card from her purse before leaving. She said that the purse was in her bedroom, and the guest, who identified herself only as Dolly, of course, must have found her purse, and also the complainant could not identify the suspect's full name. The mother's name is reportedly Teresa White, and Dolly drives an old model black spray-painted car, yes.
Have you heard about the Whites of West Virginia?
Yes.
If that's one of their family members, it's one of these still the whole damn
house.
Could
be one of those things. Steve, where do you think this story came from?
Well, if he stole the West Virginia food stamps, it has to be in West Virginia.
Where at in West Virginia?
Don't tell me Bluefield.
Joywood Road. This comes out of the Bluefield Daily Telegraph.
Yeah, that's right there in Bluefield. I never heard of Joywood Road, though.
They might have added it. They might have grown. Might have added 2 or 3 more houses since she left. It could have had a housing boom.
Unfortunately, I think it's shrinking.
What's shrinking?
Bluefield.
Oh,
the population.
I didn't know if you were having another personal moment here. So,
you're a nasty man. You are a nasty man.
Hey, let me tell you. Now, I was thinking about what year was it, but let me tell you, I found this article, and I'm actually going to do. I think we'll do a Patreon episode about this guy. But this was this is crime related. But can you imagine having this ad written about you? It's the biggest advertising fail I've seen. It's called Open for Business. And James Clint, who spent more than a year in the Quad City spotlight for murdering and dismembering his wife, has opened a tiny eatery at 4th and Howell Streets in Davenport, Iowa called Eats and Sweets.
Oh, that's gross. Who would go there and eat? You don't know what you're going to get there.
Not after that description.
He's got a history.
Dude, I mean, but it's like he kills his wife and dismembers her, but yet he opens up. But the way the paper wrote it, on the spotlight for murdering and dismembering his wife, has opened up a tiny eatery called Eats and Sweets. I mean, who's going to go there?
Not me. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, what the hell were you thinking?
Hey, and I got to clarify that last story. Joywood Road is not in Bluefield. It's in the little town of Princeton, West Virginia, where I graduated high school. I just looked it up.
I didn't say it was from Bluefield. I just said it was in the Bluefield Daily Telegraph.
Right. And we're just clarifying points here.
Just clarifying points. That's right. Clarifying points. And I got to get the name. I had it written down here. So before we, I'll make sure we have it for the outro. I'm going to credit the proper person for this. But anyway,
all right.
Speaking of that, Steve, this is an interesting one because we had a couple episodes back to where we had Kristi Schiller. Kristi came on and talked about K9s4Cops. In fact, she was episode 43.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing that got K9s4Cops started was a story she just saw going across the TV about a constable in Texas who had lost his dog. A dog was killed while they were out searching for stuff. And this is what inspired her. I mean, we don't have to repeat her story because it was there, but she said, hey, let me introduce you to this guy. So we got a hold of Ted Dahlin and got him on the air. And I'll tell you, Texas boy, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Steve, what you guys are going to have to listen to, this is going to be now this episode, folks. And Murph's just learning this too. This is just a one-parter. I mean, Ted actually had some obligations he had to attend to that involved the line of duty death of another constable. And so we didn't have a lot of time. So this is only going to be a one-parter. But I tell you, for the one-parter, and when we get to the point of where he talks about losing Blek, I mean, just you can hear a pin drop.
All these years later, I mean, it shows. It's a great demonstration of how strong that bond is between police officers or military personnel, for that matter, and their K9s. They're viewed as, and now thankfully they're treated. If they're killed in the line of duty, they're treated as a law enforcement death. And you think about your own animals, Morgan, and we've had animals, and if you killed my dog, I'm probably going to handle that more seriously than if you killed a person. I mean, we love our pets, right? And these canines are much more than a pet, but it's still, you'll hear the effect it still has on him when he tells you the story. I was just honored to have him come on and tell us the story, but look at the great thing it resulted in. K9s4Cops and K9s4Kids, getting to meet Kristi Schiller, going on the Steve Harvey show when she was recognized as one of Harvey's heroes. We just take our hats off to you, Ted. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, brother.
Man, and I tell you, it really is. It's so heartwarming, and but what's very interesting about this too is you guys hear about this. Just listen to the effort that's put into training these dogs, what it takes, but listen to the impact. Listen to what he says happened because of Blek's death, what it actually led to, and how these guys had no idea what they were unleashing when they killed his dog. And I'll tell you the other thing too, it just really makes your heart stop for a minute when he talks about how we found out about Blek. So let's not give away too much, right, Steve? But if we're going to hear this, I got to ask you one question. Are you ready to play the biggest, baddest, still interesting, and most dangerous game of all, the game of crimes?
This time I'm going to say, before I say my little saying, get your tissues out. Then get in, sit down, shut up, and hold on. Let's listen to Ted's story. This, I'm telling you, it's a tearjerker.
Hey guys, this is going to be a fun episode. We're just doing a little bit of talking for the pre-call, and this is what got everything started. If you guys will go back and remember episode 43, Kristi Schiller, she is the one that got this whole K9s4Cops thing started off, but it was because, so what's the origin story? It has to start somewhere, and it started with her watching a news story one night, Murph, and this is what really makes this stuff great, because she watched it. We're not going to tell the story yet because we don't want to jump the gun, but I think this is the origin story is what gets this whole thing in motion. And unfortunately, as most origin stories do like this, it comes out of a tragedy, but out of that tragedy came a much greater good, wouldn't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And we got to give another shout out to Kristi Schiller for creating K9s4Cops, one of the best freaking organizations. You're looking for something to support here. You want to support law enforcement, take a look at K9s4Cops and K9s for Kids. Just fantastic what they're doing. And let's get our guest on here, because it's an honor to have this young man on here.
It is. So, hey, we are welcoming to the podcast Deputy Ted Dahlin. Welcome,
Woo-hoo!
Deputy Ted.
Hey, good morning, guys.
It's like Lieutenant Dan, Forrest Gump. Lieutenant Dan, Deputy Ted.
Well, I just introduced him as a young man. I'm looking at him, and our listeners can't see the screen. We only record the audio port. Where'd all that gray come from there, mister? You got kids, don't you?
23 years being a cop.
At least you still got hair.
No, the headphones are covering up the bald spot. But.
There you go.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm just blessed. I got so much of it, I give it away. So,
and here's the first one. There you go.
There's the first one. We talked about that. So, hey, Ted, first of all, like I said, huge welcome. This is what we're going to get into. This is a story that, it's really, for me, it tugs at the heartstrings, because I think people have a soft spot for animals. There's a lot of people who love their animals. All of our kids are grown up, so now we got 2 pets. We got 2 cats who are the bane of my existence. But people, I think there's just a special bond, especially with dogs, because there's that old saying that dogs are the only animal who love you more than they love themselves. Yeah. So just the pure loyalty. So let's get into this first, though, by deciding, what in the hell possessed you to get into law enforcement? Was it just a hangover? Did you lose a bet? What was the deal here?
All of the above. I tried the college thing. It was not for me. It was a waste of money. Actually, a waste of my parents' money. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd worked for an attorney right out of high school.
Hey, hold on.
There's your first mistake, right there.
There's your first one. But let's back up for a second. What was it about college that was not for you? Don't let's say waste. I like what Mike Rowe does. So you don't have to go to college now to get an education or to do stuff. But what was it about college that did not appeal to you? Was it what you were studying, or where you thought you were headed with it?
Exactly. No, I mean, not the headed part, but I go in there and I pay a bunch of money and try to sign up for a class, and they said you can't sign up for that one. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you have to sign up for this one. You have to have this one. I'm paying for this. Why can't I take this? That's what I want to take. Well, you can't do that. That's basically, they're telling me it's a societal thing. And I said, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. So I'm not going to go. I like to learn. I just want to learn what I'm going to learn. So, so I went on and started working for this attorney who I kind of was a go-to all guy to do a lot of different things. But he and the attorney in the office owned a ranch out in the hill country, and started going up there, spent a lot of time, and that transitioned into moving out to the hill country and working on a few different ranches and doing things out there.
What kind of attorney was he? Defense, criminal defense, litigation?
Yeah, they were plaintiffs' attorneys, so they didn't make much money, but I'm totally joking. Yeah,
Yeah, I was about to say, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah,
their ranch was probably. Hey, Steve, listen up. Okay, how big was their ranch? Do you remember how many acres?
Oh yeah, it was 732 acres. It was high fenced, had exotics, had a low and high skeet house range, multiple homes.
I got a quarter acre lot.
And I got a little bit too, but yeah. Oh, it was beautiful at the time that it was sold. If I could have found $6 million, I'd have bought it, but I wasn't quite making that much.
All you had to do was sue somebody and win.
Yeah. Well, and the other attorney was more of a cattleman, and when he sold out to the guy that I did more work for, he bought, like, with leases and everything out in West Texas, it ended up being about 140,000 acres.
Wow.
So,
you know what, yeah. Javier and I'm sure you know where Victoria, Texas is.
Oh, yes, sir.
So we're down there speaking to an organization, and the sheriff was there, and we were talking about Pablo Escobar's ranch. And I said, we've been told it was anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 acres. So it doesn't matter. It's big, it's huge, whatever it was. Well, when we finished our presentation, the sheriff came up and he said, and Murph, I just want to address one thing. A 10,000 acre ranch here in Texas, we call that a ranchette. It's like a wannabe ranch.
Exactly.
Okay, boss. What did you say, boss?
We got out there and looked, and I asked where the property line ended, and they pointed out to a mountain range way, way off. And
Wow.
I said, "You see that one?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Beyond that." And I was like, "Holy cow!" Right? Like more than 2 days ride on horseback. So yeah, it was big.
Wow.
What fun. So now, where is this, where you're talking about? Just give us an idea in terms of the Republic of Texas. Where is that located at?
Where I mainly lived and worked was Central Texas, right near Austin, just west of Austin, southwest of Austin. So maybe 45 minutes to an hour from Austin, and then about the same to San Antonio. It's crazy now what it looks like. It doesn't look anything like it used to. So
Yeah, I flew into Austin here well before COVID, but it's like just the trip. It's so busy now. Just the trip from the airport. I know University of Texas is there, but man, the traffic and everything just not what it was. Like you say, years ago.
no, it's yeah, it's a little San Francisco now.
Well, the official motto of Austin is "Keep Austin Weird."
It is definitely that.
Oh, that's not a good thing compared to San Francisco. I mean, we love.
Well, they
San
actually have
Francisco.
apps. They don't tell you where people poop. They just tell you where cattle are parked. Just that's like the stockyards down at Fort Worth. One of the best things down there is they would have a guy walking around with one of the big longhorn cattles, and people would pay pictures to sit up on that thing, and just pay money to get up there, have their pictures taken. I'm going, yeah, you might think he's food, you might think it's fun, but see those little horns right there?
Yeah.
They ain't so fun, yeah.
And Austin's beautiful. I love the city, the things you can do there, the water all the activities, but it's just, again, it's weird.
It's weird. Well, so you're working this ranch. So how long are you working this, and where does the bug for law enforcement come in finally?
Well, back and forth, I was working between the hill country and here in Houston, and I worked in restaurants and some bars, doing restaurant work and bar work, waiting tables. And one of the guys I met when I was doing that left waiting tables and said he was going to the police academy. And I was like, huh? Like, couldn't believe he would be going to the police academy because he was just goofier than I was.
You thought he should be an inmate instead of a police officer?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Actually, I still see the guy today now and then. He actually drives for UPS now, but he went, and then someone who actually later, it's a long story, we won't get into it today, but who later became my cousin, which sounds really bad.
Sounds like something out of Arkansas or West Virginia.
Yeah, no, it does. He actually was the entertainment at a restaurant that I managed in the hill country, who later ended up marrying my wife's cousin. I know it sounds, anyway.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. He said he was going to the police academy. I was like, holy shit. If these guys are going to the academy, I mean, I could. And I'm up for a challenge. And I mean, I'd love to tell you it was because I wanted to, be Captain Save-A-Ho and go save the world. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And this was a new thing to try, right? And so down here, it's a little different. Well, I didn't go to a large academy through a department. There are so many agencies in Harris County alone. Last time I looked for filing charges, there's 64 agencies just in Harris County alone. So there are a lot. Yeah, there's. I mean, because you have the ISDs. The district attorney's office. You have
ISDs are independent school districts.
Correct. MUD districts can have their own police department. In Code of Criminal Procedure 2.12, who are peace officers in the state of Texas, it's like 3 pages. I mean, it's crazy who can make up a police department. Now, a lot of people don't, but there are a ton of them. So,
what's a MUD district?
Yeah,
municipal utility district.
Okay.
So they dig a big well in a neighborhood's built around them, and they provide the water and the services like that for them. And a lot of them, and I'm getting way down a rabbit hole, but they'll contract through one of the agencies, out of the constable's office or the sheriff's office where I work in the county, for extra patrol services on top of what's out there. Houston and Harris County is such a spread out area. It's 1,050 square miles, if I remember correctly. and there are all these agencies. And so if only the Houston Police Department and the Harris County Sheriff's Office were putting on academies, I mean, you just couldn't put that many people through. So there are a few colleges around here that'll put on a police academy. And they at the time, I think it was 610 hours when I went through, which now it's 1,000 or something. They keep adding stuff. But it, along with any other academy, it basically prepares you for the state exam ultimately. And some of these other agencies, the city and the sheriff's office, they're going to put in their own twist on it, their own flavor, what they want to add once you get done and get hired on there. So,
hey, through the magic of Al Gore's amazing internet, I just checked something. So Harris County was actually 1,778 square miles. The state of Delaware is 1,900 square miles.
There you have it.
I mean, we're talking about a state inside a state.
Inside a county.
Yeah, inside a county. Oh my God. Yeah, it's 64 agencies, man. There's not even 64 agencies. Well, I don't know. That almost sounds like DC, Murph. You think about all the different federal agencies and everybody.
It's crazy. Everybody's got their own agency. How many sworn officers does Harris County have?
Sworn, I think we have, if you're talking about the sheriff's office, I think it's about 3,000, give or take. Right now, half the department's eligible to retire, which is going to be a big problem here.
Hey, real quick, let's talk about the difference too, because you work for the constable's office and then there's the sheriff's office. What is the distinction between because I see this too. We were just talking about, in fact, we're going to talk about this here in a minute about what you're getting ready to go do right now. But I see a lot of notes, or you see some things too, officers killed, and some of them have been Harris County constables. What's the difference down there in Texas?
So, now I'm with the sheriff's office. I started with the constable's office and was there for 17 years before I moved over to the sheriff's office. But again, part of the main duty of the constable in the county is to serve civil process and Class C warrants. To simplify it. And I believe if you look at it, and I'd have to research it, but I think he's the only one that can, or deputy constable can arrest the governor. That's it. I don't think anybody else can, but that's just an infotainment kind of thing. And then the sheriff in a lot of counties here in Texas will be the one that serves process. But here, basically the sheriff's main duty is to run the jail in the county and other things. But that's kind of the difference is the constable's office is serving civil process and running the Class C warrants, and then the sheriff's office is doing the jail and felony warrants. And because of Harris County being so large, there would be no coverage if these constable's offices didn't have patrol deputies as well. So a lot of people from smaller towns think, oh, well, you're just a constable. I got looked down upon kind of like, oh, you're a dog catcher, kind of like you didn't know what you were doing, and I get it, right? Like, I mean, we all have those guys, right? I mean, I've worked at both agents, constables and sheriff's office, and all the agencies have those guys,
Yep.
So it's about
on this
what you
podcast. I have Murph. I know exactly what you mean.
Damn right, you are so freaking lucky.
But that would just be the main difference. I mean, the powers that you have basically are the same, or your arrest powers and all that. I mean,
what's a Class C warrant?
Traffic, something like that. But
now would you also have, I mean, when you weren't busy doing that, would you also have the ability to do any kind of proactive patrol, go out and do traffic enforcement, or, work other types of assignments?
Oh, definitely. And I got in trouble for a lot of it, but
we're just about to talk about the Dahlin rule that was instituted across Texas. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we got you on here.
Yeah. Yes. And again, I said something about contracts. And so there were a lot of contracts, maybe a neighborhood that went in 70-30, which would mean 70% of the time you're supposed to spend your time in a contract, and 30% of the time you could be out of that contract in the district answering calls, which sounds very confusing, and it is, especially on paper. But there was a lot of that. And I had over the years, I worked a couple of cases that were pretty cool. And I had a sergeant that really backed me, who's a good guy that it probably wouldn't have happened if he hadn't pushed for it. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, I could work traffic. You could do what you want to do. Unfortunately, I seem to be a magnet for drunks, even when I wasn't looking for them. I'd pull them over for a license plate light being out, and there you have it. They'd be drunk and have I don't know, stolen property and just all kinds of problems. So.
Hey, the other thing too, I noticed is there's a lot of things that say like precinct 7, precinct 5. Are each of those precincts independent, or do you guys organize the same way the sheriff's office, where they have their subdivisions or precincts out there, or is each precinct kind of in and of itself its own little fiefdom?
There are 8 constables agencies in the county. And so each one is an elected official. I didn't tell you that earlier. I'm sorry. And yeah, the sheriff is elected, and then the constables are elected officials as well. So now there are 4 commissioners for 4 precincts. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 for commissioners. But then when it comes to the constables, there are 8. And 4 was Northwest Harris County. 5 is kind of Southwest. They just changed the boundaries. I guess politics. I don't know. Going around 6 was kind of the center of downtown. So, and precinct 1 is downtown. Precinct 1's duties are the interior of the court and exterior of the court buildings. But then the sheriff's office has bailiff duties, and so it's a whole lot of overlap.
It's a pile of spaghetti trying to figure out who's doing what down there.
Wow.
There's a whole week of the academy just figuring out how Harris County is structured.
It can be confusing.
Well, I'm looking here too, Morgan. It says Harris County is the 3rd most populous county in the United States. Holy cow, that's I think it's what I'm seeing, 4.7 million people.
Yeah, it's got to be right after probably L.A. County and
New York.
That's a lot of people. Well, so because you're kind of organized that way, how did you get involved then? Kind of tell us about your path, about the way you worked up to when was the first time you got involved with handling canines, or when did they get involved with handling you? I should ask.
Yeah. Actually the first time I was exposed was in the academy. I had a buddy that, he's down near Galveston somewhere now working. I think he's an assistant chief or something, but he had a dog that was his that he used, because he was a reserve somewhere, I think, or something. But he'd throw out these pieces of PVC and the dog would go find it. And I was, I thought that was kind of cool. But I mean, that was the first time I was ever exposed to it. But when it was 2000, end of 2005, early 2006, the office, the precinct 4 where I was working, posted an opening for a canine handler, and it was going to be the first time that the department had actually, I don't want to say do it right, but before it had been guys purchasing their own dogs, training them, those kind of things, and the guys, I give them all the credit in the world. They did what they could do with what they had, right? And they did a great job, and some of them are buddies of mine to this day, and like I say, I give them a lot of credit. But this was going to be the first time that they were going to formally send somebody off to a school and get a dog from there, and it was a well-known kennel at the time, and still is. And I thought, gee, that could be a good opportunity. Really, it's kind of selfish when I saw the posting, and a bunch of guys ended up putting in for it. Actually, so it whittled down to.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you end up getting selected? If a bunch of guys put into it, how did they decide?
It whittled down to 3 of us. We interviewed. At the time, it was. I guess he was a captain. He'd been over in the school district running that as a lieutenant. And I don't know. There. We interviewed. I left that interview and I felt like I blew it, to be honest with you. And, the guy had always tried to recruit me to come and work with him and do things. School district was not where I needed to be with children that didn't want to listen. I would have gotten in trouble. But again, I don't know. I was on my days off, and guys were blowing up my phone or texting me. I don't remember if we even had. I think we had cell phones back then. But and they're, hey, congratulations, and I was like, for what? And the posting had come out, and everybody was surprised because one of the guys interviewed, his dad was a sergeant over the unit, and he's a handler still today, and he's a good handler. But everybody just assumed that he would get it, and he didn't. So shortly after he came over, and we had another spot. But I got selected. So
what year was that approximately?
End of 05, probably beginning of 06, I believe it was when it was.
Okay, so you had about 7 or 8 years on at this time, right?
Yeah, 7 years on. I'd worked probably night shift for 3 or 4 years, cut my teeth, and learned how to be the police, and I still don't know how to be the police, but that was where I really started learning. Moved to evening shifts.
Yeah, what you learn is how to deal with people, because they all lie to you.
Oh yeah, I used to be very timid and wasn't very outgoing, and people look when I say that, go, what? Huh? Not you? And yeah, but I mean, it was like a switch got flipped. After a few years.
So what were some of the, like you say, you were working midnights? Were you obviously with 64 agencies there must have been a lot of stuff going on in terms of like maybe backing up other agencies, or other officers, or getting involved in stuff?
Well, yeah, you would think that, but a lot of those agencies work, banker's hours. So
they're not full service. Yeah.
No, honestly, and in my district, in my West district, I don't even remember how many miles. I mean, it was a good area. But basically, it was me and another guy on it on nights. 2 of us, sometimes 3, but mainly 2. And I covered. There was a FM road kind of cut through the middle, and I had everything actually north of there, and he had everything south of there. So it would take 15, 20 minutes for me to get to him. Unless I was running hot, but yeah, it was sparse back then, and a lot of times it was guys coming over. The line was a freeway for our districts, and a lot of guys would run over from that other district, even though they technically weren't supposed to or whatever. We're going to help each other out. So,
what about communication? I mean, did you have multi-agency communication in your cruisers?
Yeah, we could switch with in-car radio and the handhelds to most of the county agencies. Depending on who you're with and what you're doing, you may not have access to certain ones. But basic main dispatch channels, pretty much, it's amazing now. Back then, we still had quite a few. I could reach out to all the constables' agencies and the sheriff's office if I needed to, all their districts. But the sheriff's office now we have 5 districts and then a main dispatch channel. So,
were you dispatched on calls, or are you just out looking for problems?
Both. We had a non-emergency number at the constable's office, and so people would call direct. They'd call an emergency on that number, and but if it went into 911 and it was one of these contracts that they had with the county, 911 would literally just roll the call over on the computer system. It would pop up on our dispatcher screen, and it would be there to be dispatched, to us. Okay. So.
I was just thinking about the complexity, thinking about being in dispatch and you have a 911 call come in. Okay, now wait a minute. Is this contract, or is this during the times you're supposed to be there? Are they full service? I mean, my wife was a dispatcher for years too, and we'd work with our dispatchers on the state patrol. You don't realize it. And by the way, as we're recording this, I do believe this is National Telecommunicators Week. It's the week of April 11th. So, here's our salute to all those fine men and women who are the voice behind the badge and,
Amen.
do stuff like that. I mean, they save your ass. I mean,
the people that tell you where to go.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's my wife. So, and my
Yeah,
cats.
mine too.
but to that point though, is that you realize there's a lot of complexity, especially when you've got stuff like that. So rolling those calls over, what was a, I don't want to say an average shift, or standard shift, but most of the time, what were the majority of things that you would handle that you would get dispatched to? What kind of things does the constable's office handle? Would you handle everything? Get called to homicides as well as somebody stole my bike out of my backyard?
So there was an agreement, and I think it's still the same. And basically, we work anything, at least from initial call. We work everything, homicides, whatever. Now, once it comes to, hey, the scene's under control, we're going to get things going. The sheriff's office has the investigators. They have a crime scene unit, things like that. So homicides, rape, aggravated robberies, depending on, if there's, serious injuries, things like that. Typically, there's what's called watch command. And so a supervisor would call into watch command and say, hey, this is what we have. Do y'all want to make the scene, kind of thing? And, the investigators would decide, did they want to make the scene or do they just want to follow up on our report, our initial report? So, yeah, I mean, we responded to everything that anybody else would in the county. When I started, I actually started in dispatch, and because they didn't have any full-time slots available, so I was doing reserve work, and I needed a paycheck.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it was, and it was the best thing I could have ever done, honestly, because I learned all those beats, and like you said, well, where does it go? Well, there are beats, and we don't use 10 codes. There are other codes that we use for calls. 671 is an information call, a 110 is a burglary motor vehicle, a 501 is a suspicious vehicle. I mean, it just goes on and on. But
well, let's settle a very complex issue when it comes to dispatching people. There's y'all and all y'all. So my understanding is y'all is singular and all y'all is plural. Is that correct from a dispatch standpoint?
Yeah, I'd say I'd go with that. Yeah, I never thought about it, but yeah, I'll bite for that. Yeah, sure.
No, it's in the Southeast. Y'all is just all inclusive.
I mean,
I know.
I guess it would depend. I mean, it depend on the situation, right? Like,
I
the
guess.
guy screaming for help, y'all get after it or go get it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Y'all get your ass out of here. Y'all going to jail.
Right, yeah. Or all y'all is going to be in trouble. Yeah.
Now, Murph, that was used quite often.
Yeah. See?
Going, yep, y'all. And so.
And everybody understood the meaning.
Yes, they did.
They didn't always comply, but they understood the meaning. So
it's not like it used to be.
Yeah, I want to make a slight correction. National Telecommunicators Week is April 10th through April 16th. So it started Sunday. But anyway, our salute goes out to those folks. As we're recording this, the episode won't come out on that day, but as we're recording this. So you're working, I mean, that's interesting. So you work dispatch. What did you learn in dispatch that helped you out when you got out onto the road?
Just all of the districts that were in the constable's office, right? We had a West District, an East District, a North Central, Central, South Central, how the unit numbers were made up, who was where, contracts.
Those things are extremely important when you
and
when you
really
get in a hot situation and need help.
How I remember, guys, more the voice than the unit numbers, right? I've never been a good person with names or anything like that. I have really good. I say really good, but I play music by ear, guitar, things like that. So I mean, I hear things better.
Murph hears things too. Lots of.
Yeah. What? Wait a minute. Wait. What? Okay. We're good for now.
Hey, but the other thing too in dispatch, you also learn how big of a pain in the ass constables are, right?
Oh, I had a few guys bark back at me, trying to find their location. They're chasing some guys, and yeah, I mean, being there, I do sometimes. You shouldn't snap back, right? You snap back at a dispatcher, you're going to do a bunch of barking dog calls. You're going to get the shit calls, right?
Payback everywhere.
Hey, and I can't confirm or deny that I might have done that to guys when I was dispatching. But
1 Adam 12, see the lady, barking dog.
That's it. Or send it, it's the end of the shift and you're going to send them way across their district to go to a call right at the end of the shift. I mean,
that's cold, brother. That's cold.
I'm just saying, I've seen it done. I'm not saying I did it. But, yeah. So sometimes I'll get a little snippy back, but I I feel like I'm allowed to do that only because I've been there, right? And so there are a couple times I've had to go back. I just ate crow this last month working the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. I saw a guy that was on the radio when I had a critical incident, and I apologized to him because I was a little hard on him. So,
well, some people key that damn mic and think they're supposed to keep it keyed and tie up the whole circuit, until they finish their dissertation.
Well, he was the dispatcher on the radio at the time, so he did have a reason to key it. Now, you're right about the other ones. I had issues with a bunch of them too, but anyway.
I might have gave dispatchers a couple headaches myself. Yeah, just
you
don't
give me
know.
a freaking headache every day, man.
Well, I was the guy too. I was doing.
Then.
But even as a trooper, I was doing traffic stops all the time. And then once I went through my first EPIC training, Steve, El Paso Information Center, and I learned about running tail numbers on planes and all the neat stuff you could do, I'd go out to the airport.
Oh, yeah.
EPIC. You said you were a trooper?
I was a state, started off as a city. Hey, don't laugh, Murph. Let me tell you, one riot, one ranger, one riot, one trooper. I started off as a city officer, ticket. Then was a state trooper in Kansas, then went back to the police department as a detective.
So you did finally come to your senses, because I
see. Okay, asshole. I thought we were going to be fine here. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, if you'd started off as trooper and then gone somewhere else, I can understand it. But I mean,
I went back to the police department. But let's put it this way:
so you came to your senses.
Remember how you said dispatchers can send you to the end? Just remember, the guy who edits the podcast can make you look like a hero or a zero. So
you see him squirming, don't you, Ted? He just had to get his quota every day to get one ticket, work one rep.
Hey man, two more. If I write your ass 2 more tickets, Murph, I go to the policeman's ball for free. So just watch yourself. That was the old joke. Yeah.
There aren't quotas.
We can write as many as we want. Yes. Yeah. All right, Ted. Well, you know what?
Very good topic, Ted. Thank you. That made the whole interview right there.
I knew exactly where that was going when he went, "You're a trooper." Okay. Back to our regularly scheduled podcast. Murph finally has somebody on his side.
I don't choose sides.
You apparently did on this one, pal. Y'all's ass is in trouble. I hope that was clear. All y'all is going to be in trouble. All right, so let's get back to our regularly scheduled podcast. Okay. So, yeah, you'd be working these things. You work dispatch. You learn those things. When you got out, though, like you said, at some point you finally got the dog. Let's talk about your first dog, because this is what kind of sets the stage in motion for our story later. So your first dog was, like you said, about 2005, 2006, right? When you went through training?
October 2006, I think, is when we started up in Indiana. I went up there actually went up a week early to choose the dog and kind of bond with him before I started class.
Now, do you choose the dog or does the dog choose you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been working with dogs 15 years now, and it's, at the time I laid myself on the altar to those guys and said I was an idiot and didn't know what I was doing, and please help me. And I
bet you they appreciated that more than all the the cocky assholes that come in and like, I want that dog.
Yeah, and that's something else I've learned over the years. I don't really care what it looks like. I mean, sure, it's nice to have a pretty dog, but if it does what I need it to do, that's what I care about. And and to your point, yeah, they kind of do choose you. And after I saw the dogs I saw and was asked, they showed me dogs, because now that I kind of do that and I train, I can look back and go, okay, now I see what they were doing. But they showed me some dogs that they thought would be my speed, and yeah, that dog spoke to me, and so that's the one I chose. And
if Morgan had been a K9 trooper, do they have special ed dogs for people like him?
Murph, watch yourself. Watch yourself.
Okay, I'll leave you though. I'm sorry. It's Monday.
Let me remind you which DEA agent couldn't cut it on the highway patrol.
Well, it wasn't this DEA agent.
Yeah, we'll have that story again. Ted, you've opened up a can of worms, pal. Way to go.
Good job. I'm going to be getting the one finger salute here in a minute.
No, you're not. Just be careful about which packages you open in the next few days. I know. I'm dude. It's like revenge is a dish best served ice cold. So, pal, it might be a day from now. You'll never know when, you'll never know where, but when it happens, you'll know who and you'll know why. So,
So
we'll get into that. But let's talk about your dog. What was your first? What kind of dog was it? What'd you call it?
he was a Czech Shepherd. His name was Blek, and he was I don't know, about
pictures of
90
Blek.
pounds.
He was a pretty dog.
He was kind of a sable shepherd, and yeah, he was a little skinny. They're usually, most of them are skinny when they come from Europe, but after some time we put some weight on him and started working. But yeah, we went through 5 weeks training in Indiana, and at the end of the 5 weeks, this kennel puts on a annual Olympics, and part of us graduating was taking the dogs to the Olympics, and that was eye opening.
Why?
Well, just what I didn't know, right? We did take home some hardware. He got two third place trophies in explosive detection, which.
Yeah, let's talk about that too, because you can train canines for a variety of things. So, what was yours? What was Blek trained in, and why?
He's what we call dual purpose, and two jobs. Pretty self-explanatory, but I don't. But yeah, patrol, which consists of tracking, area searches, building searches, basically looking for man or woman, and then explosive detection. So. That's at the time the replacement dog. We were replacing a dog with a school district that was a bomb dog, and the department said, "Yeah, we're going to continue to give those services, but we're also going to put a patrol dog side on it because it was just getting so busy, and we needed that also." So
now, with the dogs, is it? I really don't know anything about canines. Is it common for them to have multiple disciplines like that, where people and explosives, or more than two? Or
it is common, but now you don't want to take narcotics and explosives, obviously, because if you get an alert, what do you have? A bomb or a joint, right?
Damn, that's what you calling a trooper.
You're going to play this out, man.
I'm sorry, man. That was just so easy.
Ted, dude, I'm sorry, man. We got to cut this podcast off. You have unleashed Murph. I'm never going to hear the end of this. He's finally found one person that actually has been listening into the crap he's been dishing out. I personally am offended. I'm going to go get. By the way, there's a reason why cats are not you don't see patrol cats, right? There's a reason why, because they're sophisticated. But no.
That's true. I think I've reached this point in my life at my age where I'm starting to regress back to being a juvenile.
Yeah. Well, so the fun part is, all right, so we've established your dog is a stud, brings home the hardware, the fun stuff is coming. So, hey, but the other question I had, though, in terms of training the dog, when you have a single purpose dog versus a dual purpose dog, do they just shove more training into the same 5 weeks, or do you have to go to training longer to give it that extra discipline?
Good question. Typically, single purpose, your training won't be as long. So it's stretched out now. I mean, some places, like we're at the sheriff's office now, a dual purpose dog is 12-week class. And that's not enough personally in my humble opinion. But again, a lot of these agencies can't afford the time for the guys to, smaller agencies to be away and all that. But yeah, a single purpose dog would be much less time, because obviously it's one job. And that brings you to the ever prevalent debate of single purpose versus dual purpose. And, that's where Kristi and I butt heads sometimes, but that's all right.
Well, let's talk about that.
At least that's a good person to butt heads with.
Yeah.
But she pretty much can hold her own, I would bet, though. So, but what's the discussion between you and Kristi on single versus dual?
I think for anybody on that, it's just it can be done. You pay, whatever. And obviously, a dual purpose costs more, right? Because it's twice the training and twice the stuff that. Time that they're putting up front to train the dog. and single purpose, only one. But it's like the scales of justice, right? When you have a dual purpose dog, you're working on one and then something starts to slip on the other. Now you need to work on that. And so you're always balancing that, right? And depending on your dogs, which all dogs are like people, right? I mean, you got crazy ones, uh, ones that are good at certain things. It just, so it's a constant with a dual purpose dog and I'll tell you, even with, I mean, how much bomb stuff did I have back in 06? Now, we got the dog right after 9/11. I mean, 5 years, but there was some work with it. But that was why people really jumped in to buy bomb dogs back then, was because of 9/11. But I didn't use that. Patrol was what I used mainly. So, you're always chasing, trying to keep up that patrol. And what's more exciting? Obviously, looking for a bomb or going and catching a crook that's hiding, or a fleeing felon. Which
well, it depends. If you find the bomb before it goes off, that would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, maybe.
You see, look, but it's got to be adrenaline. It's like, okay, we found a bomb. Let's go get a bad guy because they taste like chicken.
Yeah, and they can think, and I mean, it's a interesting game for sure. But there's so my theory is, look, you take a dog like the dog I have right now. She is strictly an explosive detection dog, and I get her out of the car, and what does she know to do? Explosive detection, right? That's it. There's no, and you talk to some trainer, you talk to 3 trainers, you're going to get 3 different answers, right? I mean, you're nobody's ever going to agree. You do, but you can take equipment. With Blek, if I put on a certain collar or something, he knew. I mean, I didn't have to tell him we were going to hunt a man, right? Or if I put this on, then it was bomb work, right? I mean, and there are these rituals. Some people believe in the ritual stuff, some people don't, and that's okay. It worked with that dog, and again, it may not work with every dog, but it just, to me, like LAPD, single purpose dogs, right? They may have 2 dogs in one shop, right? They may have a bloodhound for tracking, and then a patrol dog for finding a man and dealing with him, right? Or they may have a narc dog, a lab in one side, and a mal on the other that's going to find man. So I just think it's clear. There's no confusion. It's easier, especially for new handlers, because when I train guys now, I tell them, you remember when you came out of the police academy, you didn't have a flipping clue how to be a cop, right? Same thing coming out of dog school. When I got out of 5 weeks of dog school, and they blessed me and said, "Oh, go on your way and prosper," man, I didn't have a clue. I ran into a bunch of problems with my first dog, and I had no idea what to do. I just had to learn, and I had some guys around here that I kind of picked their brains, and we worked on things and figured out the problems and made them work. But again, I kind of got off on a tangent with the single and dual. I just think it's easier when the dog understands its job and you have one job and that's it. You just go out and do it. Now it costs more. Obviously, you got 2 dogs. So I understand is it for a budget, dual purpose makes sense, but you got to have somebody that's willing to put that time and that effort in.
Yeah, because you talk about not only is it the initial training up front, but like you say, when you're working with your dog each week and keeping it up to speed, you've got to train on both patrol and explosives. So your training time now pretty much doubles each week, right? If you want to keep it up to par.
It is. It should be. And, there are national standards for things that you kind of go by. But again, it always falls back, when we have competitions or we judge things, I always watch guys. I love doing the obstacle course because we'd set some different things up, but I love to watch guys and their dogs. It's like a ballet to me. And you can see the guys that put the time and the effort into training and doing it right. It's pretty, right? Like, and then you see the guys that are chucks, right? That just want the shirt and want to drive around and say they're in K9. And
what did you call them? The chucks?
Yeah, the chucks. Yeah.
What are chucks? I mean, like short for Charles? Chuck, just like a knucklehead?
Yeah. Knucklehead's a nice way to say it.
Yeah, just call them dumbasses that should be working in another occupation, something like that, right?
Well, but there's, in every occupation, there's people like that. And unfortunately, when you're working with other guys, we had guys that would just, Had one guy thought, "Hey, I get paid just to put on the uniform." It's like, "Well, thank you for blessing us then with your presence." It's like some of us come here to work, or you'd
Yeah,
have
they're
people that would just ride it out.
Yeah.
like wannabes. It's like, some people want to be cops, but they just won't do it. And these guys want to be K9s just to, like you said, wear the shirt and have a dog with them.
Yeah.
Or the poor man's canine, you just go down to the pound, rent out a German Shepherd for the day, and make it look like you're a canine cop, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's a security agency here in town that drives around with a car that says K9, and anyway.
Well, they got a little chihuahua in there or something.
No, they have what they have is a big liability riding around, if they even have a dog back there anymore. But yeah, that's a.
But the whole point is, it's like being proficient with your weapons. It's like being proficient with any kind of skill you have. If you're not working that, especially a dog, on a daily, weekly basis, not only do you lose your skills, the dog loses their skills and their ability, right?
100%. 100%. I had I got to a scene with Blek one time, and it was a barricaded subject in an apartment, 3rd floor, and basically he tells me, "All right, we're going to open the door and you send your dog in." And I said, "No, you've lost your mind. The guy's armed, right? Like, I go where my dog goes. If I go in there, the guy's going to point a gun at my dog and me, and I'm going to shoot him." I don't think they have things called SWAT teams for that, right? Which kind of is funny because we were down on the 1st floor now waiting if they needed a dog, and the SWAT team came. And this was kind of a part-time team. It wasn't the county's team. And they were going to go ahead and make entry. And I heard the pin come out of the flashbang. And I heard a thud. And I was again on the
That's
1st floor.
not good.
And I saw something bounce real close to me in Blek. So that was 101 on the introduction to distractionary devices with my dog. Yeah, it went off.
That's
about
an shit
25,
moment.
30 feet from us. Luckily, he didn't turn around and try to eat me. And the situation worked itself out for the guys. I don't really know how he missed that window, but anyway.
There is always one. There is always one. And let me tell you, this is why when I went through basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, I was joining ROTC, so we all went through, joined the reserves, went to basic training. So when you're out on the grenade course, you've got your little foxhole dog. They build basically a hole in the ground that if somebody dork drops a grenade, you kick it into that hole, it goes down there, and then you basically go over to the corner and you cover your ass because then it directs the blast, up through that little hole. It's about a 2-foot hole, you kick it down there, so it's like a little tunnel. You kick it out. But we had guys too that pull the pin, go to throw it. I remember one guy went to throw it. It's a door. How do you miss a door? He threw it. It bounced off the top of it, bounced into it was a 2-story thing. You walk up the stairs, bounced into the front yard and went off. And we're all going, son of a bitch. What the hell was that?
Jeez. Exciting stories, right?
Well, that's why they're called sight sound diversionary devices, like you say. We don't say flashbangs. We say the kindler, gentler sight sound diversion, and they are. They do get your attention when they go off. But so you've now completed level 1 training on responding to flashbangs. So, but the thing though I'd be interested in is dogs' hearings also are so sensitive and everything else. Did Blek get any damage from that? Did you have to take it into the vet, get it checked out?
There was no blood. I mean, he didn't act like there was any damage. But yeah, I mean, you do need to, when you're doing gunfire acclimation and that kind of thing with dogs, normally, if your dog allows it, a lot of times they shake it out, but we'll try to put cotton in the ears and things like that to protect the ears, if you can. I mean, obviously, you want to do what you can to prevent things from happening to your partner. So,
well, let's talk now about Blek, because this is the whole thing that gets this thing of K9s4Cops started. So, Blek was your first partner. Let's talk about Blek for a little bit. So, a Czech Shepherd. Now, did you name it? Did they name it? How did you come up with the name?
He came with that name on his passport. So, usually there are a bunch of drunk Europeans over in Europe that are naming these dogs. I don't mean that, anybody listening in Europe, sorry,
Oh, come on, it's just cops talking about it. But that's, you listen to some of these things like Gerferger. Yeah. Well, who the hell named the dog that?
But it's either a Rico or a Blek or they come with generally the same names. And they told me, hey, you can change the name if you want, But I mean, he was 18 months old, and they're just I had enough to deal with. I couldn't. I was trying to speak Czech, and I was doing that way wrong.
That was the next question too, because if you got a German dog or a Czech dog,
That's like
Yeah,
speaking Spanish with a West Virginia accent.
yeah. It
Hola,
depends. You have
y'all.
to depend on where they come from and how they've been uh, trained. Yeah, you're gonna. It's not. People go, "Oh my gosh, you speak." I speak 3 or 4 different languages. Oh, really? Yeah, like 5 words. I mean, so sit
but the
down.
5 words I speak will either bite your ass, or stay or kill. So you've got Blek. So you had to learn some Czech.
I did.
And well, that's the interesting part too, because you like you say, just limited commands. Now with Blek, I know that when we talked with Danny Tuman, right?
Randy.
Randy Tuman. He talked about when he had his Mal, he has it in a cage now because his daughter was going across the living room and the dog just saw motion and bitter, basically. Yeah, but Mals are high maintenance. They're high energy. So, how did you handle Blek? What was Blek? Was Blek in your house, part of the family? Did you keep him in a cage as a worker? I mean, how did that work?
In the beginning, he was in the house only because the department hadn't got me a kennel yet. And I remember I had to go to I think I went to Walmart or something because I had to buy something. And I told my wife, hey, I'm going to put him in the tub in the bathroom. Just close the door. I'll be right back because Walmart wasn't far. And she called me, said he was going to, the door was about to come down. And uh, yeah, different, right? And again, you're introducing him. You're taking him from something he's used to, and now you've brought him into me. And every time you change something with a dog, you have to expect a step backwards. Okay, in training or whatever, just expect you're going to take 1 or 2 steps backwards. So I came from Indiana with him, spent that time. Now I come back here to a new environment. My daughter hadn't seen me, and she ran and jumped up into my arms, and he thought, oh well, I need to deal with that. And luckily,
Whoa.
yeah, I mean, I turned and fooed him and whatever. But he uh, he lived in the house until I could get a kennel. Now, years later, my wife told me I was right. I don't think she'll ever admit to that again. Uh, he was asleep actually on the floor in the living room because he was still inside before I got the kennel. And it doesn't matter what dog, right? You can say it's a police dog or anything else. The dog's sleeping, and she got up and was straddling, kind of 1 foot over the other, and woke him up. And dogs get woken up, it's fight or flight, right? And he had nowhere to go because she was straddling him. So he came up ready to chomp on her, and I grabbed him, got his choke chain, and got it under control. But that was probably not the best thing that could have happened at the beginning of this thing. But years later, she had a friend's dog that had been around her friend for so many years, and she watched the dog asleep at her friend's house, and her friend moved. The dog woke up and did the same thing, and she's like, you know what? You were right. And I was like, oh, it
I
wasn't.
think I shall make a recording of this and send it to your wife in a little brown envelope saying, here's what your husband just said about you on a national podcast.
That's right.
And the fact that you said he was right.
Yeah, I don't know if those words actually came out of her mouth, but I'm
I
going to
guess
take
you
it.
were.
I'm going to
Close
take it as
enough.
that. Yeah, it was something to that effect. But
Close enough for government work. So you're doing a lot of work now with Blek. So how many out of a shift, how many times would you actually have an incident where you needed to take Blek, deploy Blek?
Man, that's hard to. It came in waves.
But just maybe even like a month. I mean, it's like 5 times a month, 6 times a month, something like that.
Probably 5 would be a good average. Sometimes we wouldn't have anything, and then sometimes we'd just be busy at all get out. Yeah, a lot of it is, guys complain about, oh man, there's no work. I'm like, well, go make the work, right? Like, you can't just sit around and wait for people to make work for you. I have a new dog. I want him to work. I want him to get work because that's how you learn. That's how I learned to be a cop. I went and found it, right? Same thing with dog handling. You got to go find the work. And so I'd check by with guys on traffic stops. I'd go try to get somebody to, get in a pursuit. I mean, whatever. You're trying to get work for the dog, right? I mean, that's your job. So
yeah, it's being proactive versus reactive.
Yeah, and it's hard nowadays to do, but it can still be done. But yeah, that's you're looking for work. But yeah, probably 5. I guess a good average would be 5 times a month, depending.
Okay. So, you've been working with him now for 5 years. Let's start working up to what happened then to Blek, because again, like we said, this is the whole reason Kristi got involved, because it made the news. So let's start talking about that day. What was going on? Let's talk about the call and, work into it.
We were at the time we have these task forces. So certain areas would be hopping with crime or whatever. So they would get a contingent of us. We could get overtime or whatever, and we'd go saturate these areas. Basically, no tolerance. And we were preparing at a briefing for one of those. And out in the East District, I could hear over the radio, guys had 1 or 2 on the ground running. And I made a comment to one of the other handlers on. I said, "Oh man, they're gonna fuck this up," because they were just notorious at the time for just not getting good perimeters set up, right? And not nothing against. It takes a team, right? I mean, I can have the best tracking dog in the world, but it takes a team, and you got to contain whatever you're looking for. And so anyway, this dropped, and we were a good clip away, but he and I left that deal and started heading over there, and got to this neighborhood, and there was a big wooded area on the back side of these homes, and I learned later there was a tall 8-foot like chain link fence with barbed wire that would bordered a golf course. And so we got there, great perimeter. I mean, I got to give it to the guys. Communication was good.
What kind of crime was this dude wanted for that you were going to go after?
It was burglary habitation. They were getting ate up with burglaries in this neighborhood and in that area. And our guys just happened to get there quick enough, caught the getaway driver, and then the other 2 ran.
And let's set this up too. So when you get prepared to go after somebody, how do you prepare the dog to do it? Because did they just go out? I'm asking you a question because just as somebody who doesn't know, like, do you just go out and you just start tracking, or do you go back to the car? I mean, help us set up. How do you set up your dog to be able to do this track?
This way, it just depends on what your situation is, right? And that's
how fluid it is and what's going on.
What information do you have? Have they contaminated the scene? Right? Guys think we're just a bunch of pricks because we go, man, what the hell? Don't walk here. You're right. But every person that walks across something I need, now I have to negate that, right? And if you can tell me, hey, I ran 20 yards and stopped right there, and then that was it, great. Now I know if we continue after that point, okay, that's who I'm looking for, right? Or probably.
Right.
And what do they key in on too? Because I've heard different. I'm not an expert in this by any means, but you hear sometimes like there's the smell of fear. Basically, there's the scent of fear or sweat. What is it the dogs are actually keying in on that helps them do that?
Once you get close, it's probably is that fear and that person's scent that they've been tracking. It's more of a trailing than a tracking. I mean, if you want to talk, there folks can get into the differences between tracking and trailing, but as people run, you're crushing vegetation. There's chlorophyll that's released, all that kind of stuff. So the dogs, kind of following that kind of thing. But depending, you may take him to a car that the crook was last in and have him smell that driver's seat area, right? Because obviously, if a crook gets is in a pursuit and bails out, there's going to be some adrenaline flowing. So a lot more follicles and things are going to be falling off that human than, say, someone who was just nice, relaxed, sitting here talking on a podcast, right? So
that's why Murph doesn't run from the cops. He can't afford to lose many more follicles. So
that's the truth.
Yeah. So in this situation, the other handler that was there already had his dog out ready and had a cover guy. and I had been getting intel, just kind of up to date briefing on what they had, and the point where they last saw the guys, which was right at the corner of a fence going into this wooded area. So I said, hey, look, I'm gonna get Blek ready. Why don't you go in, try to pick up a track where they were, and I'm gonna scoot north to that fence line where the golf course is, and I'll work it from the north, and you work it from the south. I think the wind was coming out of the south, so it didn't make sense if you're trying to like do a scout or an area search. Um, it wasn't the most advantageous position for that kind
What's
of.
the quick? Yeah, tell us real quickly what's the difference because you have all these terms of art too, and we don't want it to. We don't want to get too in depth, but it's like I know you've got different types of leashes you use, I guess, depending on what you're doing. But what's the difference between a scout, and a search, like you were saying?
Well, if you're just scouting, you could go on the downwind side where the wind's blowing, maybe through the edge of this wood line, and if you're on that downwind side, you may pick up the crook scent that's in those woods, as opposed to where I suggested the guy go, actually being on the track. I guess I don't want to say it's a lazy way, but it's kind of the lazy way, right? I'd much rather have a dog track instinctually, and again, I don't want to get way off, but instinctually, let's say a wolf or something in the wild is out looking for food, and he's on the track of whatever animal it is he's going to eat. Well, at some point, the wind changes and he catches the scent of that animal. Well, he could stay another 2 miles on that track, but he's going to burn a lot of energy. It makes more sense to just cut across because he just winded it and go get it and cut that, half mile out or whatever it is. Right. So it's a natural instinct that I mean, all these things that we're using for these dogs are natural instincts that we're manipulating. Right. So
Now, you had also mentioned that the first dog and his handler had a cover. Can you explain to our listeners what you mean by that?
yeah, cover officer, when you're working a dog, you got to watch the dog. You got to look for those changes in behavior. And they're just things you got to worry about. You can't worry about crooks that are wanting to kill you, because they will. And you really can't work a gun. And don't ask me how I know that. While you're working a dog,
it might be the next time we have you on the show, huh?
Yeah. But
Oh no, okay, hold on, just a minute. Okay, you don't have to go into it, but are you saying that you had a premature discharge at some point?
no, it was negligent. It wasn't premature. It was negligent. Luckily I've got good muzzle discipline, and we can, you can go into the whole thing.
Well, we'll save that. I might edit that in later, depending upon how you treat me for the rest of the podcast, whether or not you look down at your nose at me because I was a trooper or not.
I own it. It's I teach guys, man. That's how you learn from experiences, right? As long as you don't do it again.
That's exactly right. Exactly
well,
right.
I took out a radio in a patrol car one time. We'll talk about that later. So,
true confessions here.
I've talked about this before, but anyway, back to our regularly scheduled podcast. So that's what can continue on with cover.
Yeah, cover guys is basically covering your ass, making sure if this guy's lying in wait. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of handlers. Look back in Florida, back when I was just before I got out of dog school, there was a deputy at the sheriff's office in Florida. Actually, a guy I was going through the class with knew the guy, but he was ambushed by a guy lying in wait. And yeah, you got to pay attention to the dog. So you really should have a cover guy. And more times than not, again, this day I didn't have one, and that's not good. And I know guys that do it today still, and I don't recommend it. It's that adrenaline, that want to go get them, and it can turn out bad.
Well, but explain that a little bit more too, because when you're working the dog, you are really focused on working the dog, right? In other words, that's the reason why you have a cover officer, because if you're trying to scan for everything else and trying to work the dog, your attention is divided, right? You'll miss a clue or a tell that the dog has, right?
That's it. It's a huge, just very, very slight, depending on the dog, it could be a slight.
Well, it's got to be mentally exhausting. I mean, you get fatigued mentally just even trying to watch the dog when you're in an active track, right?
Yeah, you really got to. You try to trust the that's why certain people I would pick to cover me, right? Like I trusted, just like nowadays when I only work a bomb dog, but I go run tracks with these guys, work patrol dogs because, I try to reassure them, hey, I got you, bud. You concentrate on what you need to concentrate on, and I'll take care of the rest.
Cool, very cool.
But it's it's important. But it depending on their whole it get down a rabbit hole. But depending on the wind speed, there are all kinds of things that you might just get just a blink of a change of behavior that you should pay attention to. And if you're having to worry about a lot of other things, you may not see it.
And I can't imagine somebody being a better cover officer than another K9 officer because you know what he's got to concentrate on and you know what you need to concentrate on.
You can, and you may actually, even though you should be watching all around, you might see a change on the dog, right? The last crook that we caught, I was running cover for a guy, and I kept imploring people, hey man, we searched here, and I said, I know I'm just a bomb dog handler, but we need to go search over here. And we finally got down there and searched, and guess where the crook was?
Lo and behold.
But seeing it's beautiful just watching it. Like I said, watching guys and their dogs work. I just seeing that dog. There's no mistake when it gets into odor. Whatever that odor is, whether it's the fear, whatever, there is no mistake. Like people go, how do you know? You just know. It's obvious.
It's called experience.
Yeah, even a layman, you could see it a lot of times. The dog gets excited because it's a game. All of this stuff to dogs, no matter what we're doing, is a game. It has to be, and if it's not fun, they don't want to do it. That ultimately, that's what it is.
What was the reward for Blek? Was he a tug or a ball, or what kind of thing did you use for him?
For explosive, for the detection work, it was a tennis ball, and if he ended up catching a man, depending on if they gave up or not, he would bite them or not bite them. They get frustrated,
and that was reward enough for a dog, right?
Yeah, they get frustrated. I had him turn around and latch onto me a couple times, not out of anger, but out of frustration. And you got to understand that we were at a motel making announcements, and we didn't know which room the crook went in. So I had like 8 or 12 doors that we were just, you got to go down, you got to make announcements to each room, right? And about the 7th door, he's like turned around and grabbed onto my thigh, like, "Come on, Dad, let me in," right? And didn't fault him. It wasn't out of just hey, let me go. I want to do my job. So if the frustration was built up or not, I might put on a sleeve or get somebody to put on a sleeve or something. Give him a session on
let him
that.
work out his aggression in a sense, right? Work it out a little bit.
And or get a turkey necks. The vet hated it, but I'd give him raw turkey necks. That was his reward.
When he latched on your thigh, did he break skin?
There was, it wasn't deep punctures. There was, you could tell what it was, but no, it wasn't that bad. I've had a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
Turkey necks. Oh, the worst part about that though is just how smelly they get carrying them around. Ooh.
Oh, no. They're frozen. You give it to them, it's gone in less than 5 minutes. Cleans their teeth is good. The vets, oh, that's horrible. No, it was good. It was good for them, actually, I think.
Pass, hard pass, not for me. No turkey necks. But all right, but back to that story. So you've got Blek out there. Give us a clue to what time of day, what time of night, what's the weather like?
It was 3 days before Christmas. It wasn't super cold. It was cool. That wooded area was marshy. There was a lot of water on the ground. Pretty steady wind.
Does that help, or when you have something like that, does that help or does that hurt with the scent?
Water on the ground's, dependent. It can take away from it. You just got to know what you're doing, right? But like I say, the other guy put in, and I said when I got ready, I would go to the north side, working that downwind side, and just kind of parallel with him. And if they were in those woods, we would have them in between us, right? So.
And what time of day was this? You said, was it night?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was early evening. It wasn't dark yet. It was maybe an hour or two before dark, maybe 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So we started working. I didn't quite go to the fence line. I saw kind of a trail, a deer trail or something going into these woods. And down here we have what's called yopon, which is it's a brush. That and a lot of vines, bramble vines and things like that. So
A lot of
this
sticky
area,
stuff.
yeah. So this was pretty thick with that, but I tried to go in an area that already kind of had. So I was just a little shy of the fence line, actually, maybe 10 or 20 yards, and started. And he kind of worked in and had a change in behavior, and winded something through his head to the left. So he started popping. I was working him off leash when I got to the woods because trying to work a long line, and I've had a lot of guys, and they're not armchair quarterbacking, but they're talking about this or that or whatever, and to try to work a long line in those woods, it sucks. You're tangled up. You're trying to unfuck yourself more than you're able to actually search. So,
And when you say long line, how long is a long line?
back then it was a 30-foot leash, and you maybe shorten it or whatever. For me now, a long line's 9 foot. But I had an electronic collar on him, and would you utilize that? And so I unhooked him.
What would the electronic collar do if you buzz it? He would return to you. Was that the signal, or what was the purpose of it?
Hopefully, it was more for a correction or just like a light tap on a leash would be, and that goes into lessons learned, right? What you just said, buzzing and returning, right? Unfortunately, I had to learn this way, but you learn, right? But so I had him off leash, and he was kind of bounding through some of the bramble and such, and I was trying to keep up. Saw that he winded something, head whipped, and started moving that way. So when I was able to get towards where he was going, I looked over and I could see it was the other handler and his dog that he had winded. So, all right, I got on the radio, communicated, hey, he just winded you. We're going to keep working. So now we're probably 40, 50 yards from that fence line, from that northern most point on that perimeter. About this time, there had been a news helicopter off in the distance, way out. Usually they'll sit out and use their telephoto lens, I guess. But for whatever reason, he flew right over the woods we were in and was low enough that, I mean, literally I could see the rivets on the bottom of that helicopter. And the rotor wash, again, you live and learn.
I was about to say that the rotor wash, it just disperses the scent, doesn't it? It blows it everywhere.
It can be good and bad, right? Like sometimes I'll ask a bird, hey, can you come in here and make a low pass and do right? Like you can use it to your advantage. And this may have been why Blek winded something, right? Because of that. I don't know. Again, this was the first dog, and you learn as you go. But later on, I learned, hey, that you can do that and use that rotor wash to help you. And that may, again, have been what brought that odor to him. But he took off again, and I couldn't keep up with him again, and was trying to keep up, and it was getting darker, and couldn't find him, and was calling him and getting on the radio with the dispatcher, telling him to call the news agency to get the helicopter out of there, and then I couldn't hear him. I was being quiet, trying to listen.
Was he barking as he was running, or I mean, how other than visually, how were you tracking him? Do they bark when they do that, or do they stay quiet?
No, once he got out of my sight, he was quiet. I mean, he didn't make a bunch of noise. I mean, sometimes maybe on a building search they may alert by barking, and that's a whole nother thing. I don't always like that, but yeah, no, he would have just done what he was doing, but I stopped and listened, trying to hear anything, and couldn't. So I got on the radio, told the perimeter units, hey guys, you see him, open your back door and throw him in. Everybody knew he was friendly. I mean, to them, he was not a out of control dog by any means. And so we stopped looking for crooks and started looking for my dog. And I just started a grid pattern, and it was dark by now. And a little while later, my sergeant came up to me, and he had had his leash because he had the 6 foot just dangling, and he gave me a hug.
Damn.
Did you know? Did you know before that, or was that
No,
or
that told me right there.
did you have a feeling he was just still off tracking, or what did you think
Yeah,
up until that point?
I had no, wish for the best, right?
You thought he's still working?
Yeah, something. So he walked me back, and he was laying there on a fence line dead. So
Were the suspects anywhere around?
no, they were gone. He had some blood in his mouth, so I knew he got a hold of somebody, and
Did they? Gosh, brother, we're with you here. We're sorry for what this happened in your career,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I can't imagine this is the same. This is it's the same as a human partner being killed in the line of duty.
Yeah,
It's horrific.
no, it sucks for sure. But the I started to carry him out of the woods after I had to wait. They had to bring a DNA swab, swabbed his mouth
Mm-hmm.
for the suspect's DNA, and I tripped and fell on my face in all that water, and I think it was my sergeant at the time tried to pick him up and help, and I yelled at him, said, "No, I got it."
Yeah.
But then I had to take him. Had to go to a fire station, get an ice chest full of ice, put him in that ice chest, and take him to A&M for necropsy. So, but bunch of other canine units from the county showed up, and they began looking for these guys. So,
I bet. I can't imagine how top priority that was for every canine officer in Texas at the time.
it was. They, yeah. And it's good I didn't stay there, and it's good I didn't go looking for them. But they found they were two. They were brothers. One was a juvenile. The other one had just turned 17, which is, you're an adult in Texas at 17 for your criminal actions. And they found the younger brother, and I don't remember how, but they did. We had Gulf Coast violent offenders out there, the Marshal Service, bunch of guys looking. And he finally, I guess, he said that the dog found him, and his brother was about to go over that fence, and he started yelling, but it was winter, so they had on a heavy coat. And so, that's going to help you out a little bit with a dog on you. And the brother came up behind him and started choking him, got him off, told him to get out of there. And when the little brother said when he met up with him, he just told him that you don't have to worry about that dog anymore, basically. So that was that.
Let's talk real quick about the protections for police canines in Texas. At that time, in 2005, what were the laws about police canines? Because in some areas they're considered the equivalent of a sworn police officer. Was there anything from a statutory standpoint you could do to these guys?
No, I don't believe at the time there was on the books, really. It was not an equal or anything for a service animal. But shortly after it changed. But yeah, it was nothing. And honestly, it was, be frank, it was shit what the guy got for that. But
well, let's talk about that for a second. Yeah. But no, hold on before we talk about that. Let's talk about Blek. So you'd had him for about that time, about what, 5 years?
3.
3 years?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And look, the folks can't see this on video. We can, and this is why this is always one of those tough things, because we've talked to people who have lost their partners, who have had some terrible things happen, and when you see the emotion, the emotion is real. I mean, even to this day, I mean, this was 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
16, 17 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How? I mean, he was basically like your partner, right? You were with him every single day.
More than with my family, yeah. We worked the evening shift, which is a family killer. 2 to 10, and then we were on call 24 hours a day. So you get called out or whatever. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with him. A lot of bonding.
It's just heart wrenching. I mean, and all these years later, it's heart wrenching for us to watch what you're going through.
It used to be a lot worse, believe me. Fortunately, I had a chief at the time that volunteered me to go to a PCIS, post critical incident seminar, because I had about 3 years that were real bumpy in my career. So I went to that and realized it, or I didn't at the time, but I didn't realize how much this incident affected me, and that helped. Something called EMDR, which is something that I guess started back for Vietnam veterans, but they basically reprogram your brain. And it used to be when I'd get to the part about my sergeant coming up with a leash, I'd lose it and I couldn't even talk. So it's gotten better with time.
Yeah, I think they've got some techniques too called cognitive-based therapy, things like that help you, like you say, when a triggering event comes up, you learn how to deal with it and kind of deflect the trigger. But even now, right now, I mean, this is the tough part. We love doing these podcasts, but we don't love when we have to go through this. But it's so important people hear the story. And again, it's the emotion. I mean, a lot of people out there may think cops are heartless, they don't care, But when you even in an animal, when you think about how much time and effort you put into that relationship, like you say, did you pick the dog or did he pick you? I mean, regardless, you guys became a unit. I mean, you guys, you knew what your dog was thinking sometimes before he did, and the same thing with you. He understood about your what I'm trying to be sensitive about how to ask this, but let's just talk about so you did the necropsy.
Mm-hmm.
Necropsy. I was thinking necroscopy, but that's a different kind of discipline. But necropsy, which is basically an autopsy for an animal. So that's what they did. The brother just got up behind it and just choked Blek to death, right?
It was kind of inconclusive, but that's I think ultimately, there may have been that, and along with a heart attack. It was just there was they couldn't give me a definitive answer. So.
And when you say the guys got shit for what they did, what was the ultimate outcome of the case?
I was getting my replacement dog, and the ADA that was assigned to the case said she'd done all this research and called all these people, and she couldn't find anything that was similar. So no law in the books, but she was going to offer him 2 years for the burglary habitation, which as a adult, that was his first charge. So in Harris County, first charge for burglary habitation, 2 years, that's, you can't, I mean, that was hard at that time to get more than that for anybody, right? So, I mean, she can only do what she can do, right? I mean, I can't hate her for trying to do her job. I mean, what do you do, right?
Well, go back to where your chief told you to go to this seminar. How long afterwards that Blek was killed did you go to this seminar?
Oh, that was 9 or 10 years, I guess. 9, 10. Wow. 6 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what had happened during that time to where he finally volunteered you to go? I mean, you said you went through some rough patches.
My second dog ended up being crazy, literally. He'd turn on. He was a crazy dog. And the final straw was doing a demonstration one night why they had me going there to a Halloween party with this dog. Again, I do what I'm told, but he turned, and he had dog's pattern. He realized stuff, but he would come up at me, and I would basically hang him up and almost choke him out, but I'd give him his air back right before he was about to pass out. Well, he figured that out and knew exactly what was going to happen next. And as soon as I gave him that air back, he started lighting me up both sides of my hands, my arms, and was about to get me in the face when I hung him up again. And everybody's screaming in there, all these kids, oh my gosh, poor dog. And he's biting through the lead, the Nalgene lead that he's on. And luckily there was a deputy there whose neighborhood it was. And he's like, what do you want me to do? And he pulled out his ass, and I'm like, hit him. and the dog's almost through the leash. And what people don't understand is if that dog got through that leash, I would have had zero control. And, I wanted to shoot him. Honestly, I mean, that's how.
But you got all those kids there.
Yeah. So, that, dear sir, so I didn't want to do that. So he taps him on the head with his ass. And I yelled out, hit the motherfucker. So he cranked on this dog with everything he had. And that dog shook his head and just looked at him like, that's all you got. And fortunately, shortly after, he passed out, I choked him out. And I started dragging him outside. People didn't see. I had long sleeves on at the time. It was Halloween, but there was a bunch of blood coming out of me. I ended up going to the hospital, getting stitched up. But yeah, so that dog was crazy, and ended up why they kept it. They did gave it to a handler who'd never handled the dog before. I just
talk about setting somebody up for failure.
I just told him, hey, be ready, be ready. Be ready. Be ready. And he called me one day out of breath. Oh my God. I said, oh, it must have happened, right? He said, that motherfucker's crazy. Yes, he is. Same thing, right? So
should have figured that out when they named the dog Loco, right?
Yeah, it was. But
there you go.
Yeah. So that was, that was bump, I guess, number 2. And then I was involved, I guess after 2012, I got involved in a shooting. A gunfight out in the middle of the road, and so that I guess that'd be bump number 3. So I guess after all that, I guess there were I had good people in my supervision. Like I say, that sergeant that would stick up for me doing investigations and things back when I was in contracts was over investigations because we did have some investigative units, and he said, hey, why don't you take a break, come over here. And so he got me over there doing some things. And shortly after that, I think the chief said, hey, you're going to go to this thing. So
good idea.
Good. Well, look, we just had, by the way, Murph, I forgot to tell you over the weekend while I was having my 35th wedding anniversary, Chris Bayless called. And we just had Chris Bayless on. He was an ATF agent and long-term undercover. And that's what he said, Murph. He said he got so many calls from people, especially when he was talking about the PTSD and dealing with the PhD from IACP, a lot of acronyms there, but the International Association of Chiefs of Police actually had guys call him that he hadn't talked to in years saying, hey, what's the name of that PhD? He hooked up a couple more people with getting some help that they need. And Ted, the thing is, there was a time where cops didn't talk about this stuff. You were said, hey, you just suck it up, just man up, You didn't talk about suicide. You didn't talk about depression because that meant you were weak.
Chief said you go, that was the chief. Hey, go get a bottle of whiskey, right? So, yeah.
Bad advice.
Yeah. No, I mean that's not what he was telling me. But that back in the day, that's what
that's what they would have told you.
That's what was expected.
Yeah, and there's
just
nothing.
Go tie one on and come back in the morning, and we're going to get back to working.
Better. You can't unsee the things we've seen. Unfortunately.
Well, look, my dad was a World War II and a Vietnam vet. And let me tell you, I can tell you from personal experience, you don't unsee stuff. And I know I never knew what he saw, but I knew from being in World War II and from being in Vietnam, it was bad shit. And it affects you. I mean,
it does.
And the folks who don't get help for it are the ones that usually end up taking their own life.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, it's not bad to ask for help for sure.
Well, let's talk about how you ended up meeting this force of nature called Kristi Schiller, because again, she's one of these people. She said you got to have a pretty strong husband when you've got 300 cops on speed dial, and you're also on the board for K9s4Cops. So when did your first contact with Kristi Schiller happen?
I got the crazy dog, and I was back from school with him, and I walked into the patrol office, and one of the sergeants in there said, hey, I just put a message in your box, some K9 cop thing or something called you. I was like, okay.
And how long after Blek was that?
6-8 months, maybe a year. It kind of clouds together, but I checked the message, and it just said, call this lady, at this number. And at the time, it was the executive director or whatever who started with Kristi, and I called her and she was so excited, and I was like, all righty. I mean,
You still got it there, stud.
yeah. Like, I don't know what you're excited about, but okay. And oh my gosh, no, you don't understand. This is, she started this because of you and your dog. And oh, okay, great.
Sure, it wasn't the voice like, "Hello, this is Deputy Ted. Can I
Yeah.
help you?"
No, it wasn't that for sure.
Allow me to introduce myself.
That's right. Let me introduce you to my dog. If you would take my dog from me, I'll take the next dog. But
That's right. So I called her. She said that there was this lady, Kristi Schiller, who started a nonprofit, and basically your story was the reason why, and you're the reason why, and she wants to meet you. I said, okay. So
really, what did you think at that point? Did you think, do I have another crazy? I had just got rid of a crazy dog. I don't want a crazy person. I mean, what was going through your mind?
And I'm married.
You always wonder, right? Everybody wants to give you that dog. Oh, I have this dog. He's vicious, those. So you take that with a grain of salt, right? All of it. And obviously I try to be a good cop, and I did a lot of research, but I couldn't find a whole lot out. So a meeting was set up, went and met her at her house. And I was like, in the beginning, kind of like, is this for real? Like, because I mean, she's very ADD.
We know. We did the interview with her. We know.
Yeah, I'd love her. But I mean, just very animated, and just, I mean, she told me how this was going to be just, and I listened, and said she wanted me to be a part of it and all that. Would I be willing to? And I didn't really know exactly what she had in mind, but I said, sure. Yeah. I'd been contacted by a sergeant in another agency in Harris County that ran their K9 unit. And he was buddies with another guy who was writing a book on line of duty deaths for dogs. And he asked if I would meet with them and kind of do a walkthrough on what had happened with Blek. And I always wanted something good to come from that incident, right? I mean, just like when I teach use of force classes or something like that, you show these videos of guys giving their lives, and you can't let that go to waste, right? I mean, that's important. And so you can't let that death be in vain. You got to learn from that, right? So I just wanted some handler to learn, from my mistakes and not make them again. So that was really all I was looking for. But then, when she reached out and said she wanted to do this, I was like, oh, I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm willing to support you, help you in any way I can. Because again, I just, I didn't want my my partner's death to be in vain. So.
Good. You say she's ADD, but man, she has a huge heart. The fact that she stepped up and just addressed this on something she saw off of television. I mean, what a sweet lady.
She and Mr. Schiller both. They're just, John. They're good people. They do have big hearts. They do, for sure.
And this comes from a lady who thought dogs at the most might cost $1,000 a dog. That was her initial.
Yeah. Yep. You're talking $10,000-$12,000 easy. For a dual purpose dog. So,
before we talked to her, I had no idea they were that expensive.
The one I'm working now, were running about 15. They're probably more now. So,
yeah, and obviously they're not cheap, and they are worth, all the money that goes into them as long as you've got good handlers. On the other side, you just can't get a dog and then get a crappy handler, because then you never get the value out of the dog that you want. So, but let's talk about meeting with Kristi and John at that point. When did you kind of cross that threshold to go, okay, they're serious? Did you just think you were meeting with some rich people who are doing crazy stuff with money and going, hey, I'm just going to be another trinket or a toy in terms of what they're doing?
Yeah, I hate to say that, but yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
we're all the same.
You just don't know, right? And the first 5 dogs, and then, but Kristi's a sponge, right? Like she'll listen. She wants to learn. Does she always listen? No, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong. You don't want anybody that's always going to listen, but she listens to your opinions. I think that's one reason she has, myself and some other guys on the board that have the experience we have. But she didn't know anything about dog vendors when this all started, and We took her to her first dog vendor, and she was like, "Holy cow, this is, like the Walmart for dogs, or the Saks Fifth Avenue for dogs, I guess."
That kind of represents the socioeconomic difference here, right?
Yeah, but it opened her eyes, right? And so every time, she's just always willing to learn, right? And just trying to soak up that knowledge. So, yeah, I didn't know at first, so I was, I guess, cautiously optimistic. And holy cow, what, 3 to 5 years into it? I mean, I did things some people never do in their entire lifetime, right? I mean, Rose Parade, being on a float. Not only that, 125th annual. That was what's cool. That was my kids and my wife, their first parade to ever go to. That was it. And they got to decorate. They got to decorate the float. I mean, it was just
the granddaddy of all parades.
And the cool thing about it was that it just opened people's eyes to canines and what they do. And that's not, the mission of K9s4Cops is not just giving dogs, but I think it's also being ambassadors and trying to school folks on what these dogs do and the importance of them in society.
Well, you're bringing a light to what law enforcement's really involved with and the dangers that they face on a regular basis. But then you guys also got to go to a special TV show, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Steve Harvey. Yeah, that was interesting.
Wow.
Well, no, we got to talk about that for a minute because, first of all, how did they get you all there? Second of all, how did you already dealt with one crazy dog? Now you got a bunch of dogs in one room. How do you guys get out of this without the dogs tearing up you or each other? Because my understanding was you were in that back room for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think I was in Chicago for 24 hours. Like, I flew in, got there, went to studios. They brought us up in this service elevator. I knew a couple of the guys, or one of them at least, maybe two. But it was like a large conference room on the opposite side of the building on that floor from Kristi. And luckily I didn't have a dog, right? But everybody else did. So, I got to go to the bathroom. Well, guess what? I'm going to watch this dog. Now I got to watch this dog. So basically I was a dog watcher.
Babysitting.
Yep. Babysitting dogs. And, for the most part, they were all social.
Well, I was going to say, but how did the dogs react when their handler turns them over to a total stranger, basically?
Well, you hope the guy's been doing some acclimation training. And,
you hope.
Hey, is he friendly? I mean, you deal with it. That's why I handle dogs, I guess. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, they're not on cue. They're not doing their job, right? I mean, they know the difference for the most part, right? I mean, yeah, they were anxious because there were other dogs in there, but.
Did you get bit that day?
I did not that day, thank goodness. Yeah.
There you go.
I noticed he said that day. So there may be another one that we'll have to talk about, but let's talk about that day. So how cool was it to be, that you're being part of this surprise? So tell us about, getting all keyed up and then getting ready to walk out, and surprise Kristi with this.
Yeah, she wasn't supposed to know about it. So, I had to rehearse these lines and I still screwed them up, but it's all right.
Well, it was funny because when she was telling us her version, she said, they had me in the green room, and if I wanted to go to the restroom, which is just across the hallway, I had these two massive men there to escort me across the hallway.
I didn't have massive men there, but yeah, it was, hold on, we're going to go check the hallways. Somebody was watching so you could get past to go to the restroom because, yeah, they didn't want it to accidentally, see, they wanted it to be a surprise, which it truly was a surprise.
But she was expecting you to be there, right? And you had to come up with a way to bail on her?
She's like, hey, I want you to go. And I said, I can't, and I don't remember what I said. She basically said, this is bullshit, right? Like, this is bullshit.
And she was bashful.
Not, yeah, she was not happy. Like, I was getting texts and I'm sitting over, I was getting texts while I'm over there waiting. I can't believe you're not here, da-da-da. And I just didn't respond, right? So, yeah. And then she had to go and start crying, right? Like, she's mad at me because she said I made her cry on national television, but I'm pissed off that she cried because it made me cry on national television. But, you know,
I'm not crying, you're crying. No, I'm not crying, you're crying.
that's right. That's right.
But it was for the right reasons here.
Sure.
Well, so tell us about walking out, though, that moment when you surprised her. Just give us your, what did it, how did it feel to really pull the wool over her eyes like that and genuinely, because she said too, she was genuinely surprised, had no clue.
Oh yeah, she's still pissed off at me till today. I mean, honestly, she is. Not in a got you kind of way. It felt good. She needed. It's good that she got recognition, right? And
Absolutely.
and to get that, because she's done a ton for the dog community, and I get it. Like a lot of guys, they. Like you were talking about before, think that, she's just this lady that's wanting to do this, whatever. But just PR, I get it. But her heart's in the right place, and she's doing it, for the right reasons. So
let me tell you a clue how I know she's serious about this, because I deal with ADD or ADHD and stuff. This has been going on. I mean, she founded this back in 2010, I think, right?
Yes.
2000. So we're going on 12 years now. Somebody with ADD cannot sustain something like this for 12 years unless it is a true, genuine devotion of theirs. And she's dedicated to it too. I mean, when we had her on the episode, when we talked with her, it just actually came out the previous week from when we're recording this episode 43, came out the week of April 4th. I mean, she just, like you say, just full of knowledge. But the other thing too is people look at her and think, oh, you've led a life of privilege, forgetting the fact that she was the victim of a pretty serious assault and attack. And the way she just handled it, even with us, I'm going, good God. I mean, if you're a guy, we say you got a big set there, and she just the way she dealt with stuff. It's like, and I think she brought that mindset to dealing with this. Did she ever tell you what was it about that story that appealed to her, the reason that she wanted to do this?
I don't even think the volume was up on the TV when she saw it. I think they were showing a picture of me. Maybe it was from the Chronicle story, holding that picture with my dog, or I don't know what she saw on the TV, but I don't think the volume was up, and I think basically from what I remember, she related that there's a guy about my age, probably has a family like I do, and now he's lost his partner, and which that was the biggest kick. One of the biggest kicks was going home and telling my daughter the next morning. But yeah, I think that's why.
I can't imagine that conversation. And thinking back when we talked to Kristi about this in her interview, they were trying to, Christmas Eve, they're trying to decide what Christmas presents she wants on Christmas Eve,
Shame on John, right? I mean,
yeah.
every time I get up, at the last benefit that we had, I think I had to get up, and all my guys in my unit, I think we got a little unit citation or something. So they all pushed me forward, like, "Hey, buddy, you're talking." So, and I usually always start off by going, "John, I'm sorry," right? Like, "I'm sorry, didn't mean to do that." But
and it kind of, I'm quite honest, it just pisses me off that people would look unkindly on her for what she's done, because it's this simple. She saw a need. She didn't wait for somebody else to do something. She stepped up and did something, and it's continuing 12 years later, and it's been phenomenal for the law enforcement community. So God bless her. I haven't met her yet, but love this lady.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. So they're the skeptics and those that maybe, hey, it takes all kinds in this world, but yeah, she's definitely doing it for the right reasons.
There's turds out there that say somebody should do something, but they would never consider stepping up themselves.
You go back to, the guy only getting 2 years, and he probably didn't even spend 6 months in jail for killing my dog. But, and I say dog partner. But guess what? Thanks, bud, because you just put 250 more dogs on the street to catch pieces of shit like you, right?
So, absolutely. Amen,
you try to look at glass being half full instead of half empty.
Yeah, and that's what we all try and do. But at the end of the day, it still sucks. But when you sit back and look on it, and there will be a time in your life where you'll look back on it, and it'll be maybe you never get over it, but you do get through it, and there'll be a day when you finally get through it. But you'll look back on and realize that Blek served a much bigger purpose than being a single dog out there with you.
Oh, definitely. Yep.
Absolutely.
Whatever higher power people believe in, mine's God, but things happen for a reason, and I can't explain why, but him dying, that dog eating me up, me getting involved in a gunfight, that all happened for a reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can't explain all of it, but that's, I think we have certain things that happen for certain reasons, and, that's just how it's supposed to be. So.
Well, let's before we lighten things up, let's just finish too, because it is a tough part of the job, these things. And just when we were getting ready to record this, I mean, you were on early, and one of the things we talked about is you're getting ready to help plan another funeral for a cop.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're planning it, but our department's so large. I'm tired of doing this this year. I think this is number 8 that we're involved in, but we have resources. We have a great honor guard or color guard. Top notch. The city does too. We have an air wing mounted. We have a lot of resources. So we take that contingent and move places. Again, this constable's agency just lost a deputy a week or two ago, and this is the planning for that funeral. But they need to be able to mourn and not have to worry about
responding to calls for service and taking care of things.
Responding for service. So we have our patrol will pick up those calls. We're there, don't worry about your back. Somebody sneaking in here and doing something. Our SWAT team's there to, we have a large contingent, and then as K9 will go through and do what we need to do beforehand. But yeah, I got to go pre-plan and look at this venue for that here very, very shortly. So
that's the law enforcement brotherhood and sisterhood. You just can't beat it, man. You got to be part of it to understand it, but you can't beat it.
Yeah, people think it's they're crooked. They're looking at no, it's not it at all. If you haven't done it, you don't understand it.
That's exactly right.
It's just like guys who've done special forces training or whatever. I wasn't in the military, but it's a if you haven't embraced the suck together, it's hard to understand it. So
yep.
Unless, like a Navy SEAL told me one time, is you can always tell when a Navy SEAL's about to bullshit you. He said, "No shit, there I was knee deep in grenade pins." But I mean, they are. But it is when you talk to guys who've been Rangers, Force Recon in the Marines, SOCOM, Special Operations Command. You're right. It's a brotherhood, sisterhood that you only get it by being there, by doing it. And you've obviously done a lot of things. And at the end of the day, too, I tell you the one organization I really appreciate, and I donate to them every single year. In fact, my Amazon, you can donate to charity with what they call smile.amazon.com. All of my money goes to the Officer Down Memorial page, odmp.org, because they also have a K9 section, and they honor every K9 that's killed in the line of duty. In fact, you get they have the T-shirts for the officers with the name, the roll call. They have the T-shirts for the K9. So very proud that these guys, do stuff like this, and I'm just always honored to support folks like that. Because to your point, K9s perform such a valuable service, and quite frankly, the role of a K9, at the end of the day, you hate to say it, but the role of a K9 is to make sure you go home, Ted.
100%.
Your partner is there to make sure you go home.
I don't want to, or one of my buddies. I don't want to go tell his wife that I didn't want to send my dog there because, again, love them and you get a bond, but they are a tool. And I'll train another one. I mean, as callous as some people may think that sounds, that's what it is. Even though you build that bond, I mean, he died doing his job and he died doing what he loved to do. So it's a tool, but it's a great tool. It's a phenomenal tool. There's nothing that. No machine yet that, as I always say, I sound like a broken record, that's been invented that does what these dogs, a good handler and a dog, can do together. So
Murph knows I have a huge Belgian beer collection. I have a big beer fridge. But I will tell you this: my next toast will be to you and Blek, and we'll toast Blek.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Sweet. Yeah, it's Ted, thank you so much for taking the time to come here. We know you got a ton of things on your schedule, and you have Kira, I think, is your dog now. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you got a busy schedule, so the fact that you gave us several hours of your time, it's just, and just supporting Kristi on the board.
Yeah, but wait, we can't go yet. One more thing we got to know from you. You got to tell us a funny story about Kristi that we can use with her.
Don't piss that woman off. She'll come and kick our butts.
Come on, give us a funny story.
Man, you put me on the spot.
Oh, he's got to go to a board meeting.
Absolutely, asshole! After dissing the troopers, the trooper brotherhood, you're on the spot, pal.
Let me explain. You're not the only trooper I diss. I diss all of them. They deserve it. I got buddies that are troopers.
It's all done with love.
Man,
there's just so many I know. Just pick one.
Kristi, I had nothing to do with this. I just want you to know. You can see this devilish.
He just doesn't want to say.
I know,
man.
You can see this devilish grin coming up on his face.
All right, man. We'll let you off the hook. I don't want to put you on the spot too bad.
You can outrun her, Ted. Well, you might damn be able to outrun her dogs, though.
Yeah.
Now, she's got a couple mouths there. We were recording it. Those dogs were going off. I'm like, just make sure they don't eat me. And like she told James Comey, the dog won't eat you unless she found out you voted for Hillary Clinton. So.
Right. That's
right. She sent me that picture. That was hilarious.
That is so similar to episode 8, Mike Neal, the 17 Seconds from Hell, but he's the Arkansas Fish and Game guy that took on the 2 sovereign citizens. Mike's a buddy of mine.
Yeah, I listened to him talk in Texas at a conference. Yeah, that's a phenomenal story.
Well, we have the video of him nut checking the vice president of the United States when he was getting his medal.
Awesome.
He did. Yeah, awesome. It was Joe Biden at the time, but he reaches back with his hands and you can see he made first contact. And it was like, oh.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Kudos. I'll buy him a beer.
All right. Well, I tell you, we'll arrange that. So, hey, but Ted, I got to tell you, man, we're going to wrap up on time as we promised. But I can't tell you, man, it's an honor to talk to you. And the other thing, too, is you can just see how important this job is to you. You said you didn't start it because you wanted to, when you got into it, you didn't want to serve people, but it's become very clear. That's what you do now. And the response that we got out of you when we talked about Blek just really shows where your heart is. And it takes more people like you with the heart in the right place, even though your mind's a little off because the way you talk about troopers, but your heart's in the right place, pal. Bless you. You try so hard. We're just so proud of you, Ted.
Oh, thank you. I'm a little SLO, as my friend's mother used to say, but it's all right.
Hey, and hats off to your family too for allowing the dog in the house, because I know that's a different lifestyle altogether.
Well, that's one thing folks don't realize. It's the families that probably take the brunt of this.
Yep, they always do. So, they always do. It takes a special spouse and children.
It sure does.
God bless you, brother.
Thank you.
God bless you. Well, we're going to keep this right on time like we promised. So y'all hang on with us. All y'all stay tuned for the debrief. Through my diligence as a highly trained investigator, I need to give credit to who gave us the story from Bluefield, West Virginia, and it was our buddy, Fred Nicolosi. Fred ferreted out the information and provided it to us so that we could provide you additional entertainment, and we have. Thank you, Fred.
Absolutely, Fred. You're one of our heroes, buddy. We can always count on you.
With good questions. And he says, I'm sorry for asking another question. Dude, that's what Q&A is about. It's about asking questions. So don't apologize for that. That's why we invented the segment. So anyway, we hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, seriously, even when you listen to it, even when I was editing it and you got to the part, and when he talks about how he didn't know what was going on, he thought his dog maybe just lost, but when the sergeant walked up to him holding his 6-foot leash and came up and gave him a hug, all these years later, what is it, 15 years later, whatever, something like that, he still breaks down.
It's and I got to tell you, when I see a cop tear up, thankfully you can only hear us. You can't see us because I usually tear up too. I don't know if it's an age thing or it's just a brotherhood thing or what, but what a fantastic story. And, Ted didn't let that get him down. He moved on. It took him a while to get over it. You heard his story just now, but he's still back out there kicking ass and taking names now. I think he's on his third dog, if I remember correctly. And this one is the mobile order dog. He smokes
Mobile
odors.
Odor.
Yeah.
You said order. It's like he's not a short order cook. The dog is not out there taking orders.
Smell fries. Everybody smells fries. That's why you own cats. You can't bark like a dog.
I know. Anyway, well, guys, we hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, very inspiring, and we've got some more stories coming up too. So, and some of these dogs are awesome. Some of the seizures they're getting, what they're doing for kids. So we'll have some more episodes coming on that. But if you like this, head on over to that Apple and Spotify. Hit those 5 stars. Let us know what you think about us. Give us some feedback. Give us some honest feedback. You want more episodes? You want fewer? What kind of stories? In fact, we have actually put stories in. We went out and found the people because people said, hey, could you talk to this person? Or what about this person? So we're working through those all the time. Also, head on over to our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com. That's where we put all of our merch, our information, the books. We got our new book list out there, which actually is extensive. I think we have about 20 books on that list.
Wow.
Or even more. From the guests and stuff. I think about 20 or 21 of our guests actually have written books. So we've got those up there as well. Follow us on this thing called social media before Elon Musk buys it all up, at Game of Crimes on Twitter.
That's
at
another
Game of
story.
We'll have to talk about that. Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. And if you feel like just tossing a couple dollars, go over to paypal.com. Use our email, gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com or paypal.me/gameofcrimes. Whatever makes it easier, but really where you got to be, patreon.com/Game of Crimes, our case of the month. We've got some other good stuff coming up. We got our live stream coming up, our review, probably going to be Patriots Day because it's so far in the lead. It's like double jeopardy. You ain't going to catch the guy. So he's so far ahead. Final Jeopardy, there's no catching him. So I think it's going to be Patriots Day.
Well, and it's fantastic because we had Ed Davis on here, months and months ago, who was the commissioner of the Boston Police during the marathon bombing up there. And if you don't know it, Mark Wahlberg does things to support children in with law enforcement, and especially against the opioid crisis that's going on right now and all the counterfeit medications. So I'm excited. I've seen the movie, but I'm looking forward to watch it again. I think he's a fantastic actor, and who knows? We have connections. You never know. You might hear Mark on here someday.
I know a guy who knows a guy. Maybe we might have somebody else famous. We're still working on that. We won't tell you who, but we actually have made contact. We have the agreement in principle, and we're just trying to find a date now. So
yep.
We'll have somebody famous other than me.
He contacted just a couple days ago, and we should know by the end of the month. So we should have a date.
All right. And by the way, that episode with Ed Davis was episode 16. So go listen to Ed Davis and listen to what Mark Wahlberg's personal trainer, Ed Davis, says about working out with Mark.
Yeah.
Which was Mark gets up too early for him and he doesn't stay up late enough for Ed. So
yeah, that was a great interview too. Ed was a fantastic cop.
Yeah. So, and we'll have a chance to do that. Anyway, guys, we want to thank you guys once again. And we sincerely mean this. You guys have been helping us out. We hit a huge milestone. We're way up there now in terms of podcast downloads. We want to thank you guys. And thank you guys once again for playing the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes.